Okay, so we're live. Now, I see that we have about 11 attendees. I don't know about you guys, but I always like to give people a little bit of time to kind of make their way in before we get started. But hopefully you can hear me. I'm not co-hosting this with anybody today, so uh, I don't know if everybody can hear me, but I assume that you can. So I am just going to give it a couple of minutes and then we'll get started here. Okay. I'm going to turn the wait screen back on just for 1 second. I'm going to go refresh my coffee. So if you would like to do so, you can do the same, and then we will just get started here real quick. Okay, well, I'm going to get started here. Now, I have got nobody raising their hands right now, just as a way of letting me know that somebody can hear me. If you can imagine, I'm in front of a dead computer right now. If you can raise your hand, yeah, got some hands raising. Good. Okay, that's fantastic. All right, cool. I've got a button to lower everybody's hands, and I'm going to press that in three, two, one as well. So, okay, well, everybody, welcome. I'm John McNerney. I'm a certified financial planner from San Francisco, California. I have been invited to give some prepared remarks today to the Nomad Gate audience. I am going to go through a deck that I have devised that is specifically oriented towards individuals that are looking at Portugal as a potential new home. Specifically, I've been asked to talk a little bit more about the Golden Visa, which I'm more than happy to do today. But I will tell you a little bit about myself here, and we'll get going. Okay, thanks, Gretzky. Okay, so the Q&A works as well. So ground rules. Let's just do just a bit of housekeeping. So yes, I would love to see an open chat coming here so that I can answer live questions. I received a few questions in advance of today as well, and so I'll answer those at the end of my deck. So I'll start with introducing myself. Again, I'm John McNerney from San Francisco, California. I've been living in Portugal for about 3 years. And my story is that my entire career has been premised around helping individual investors as a certified financial planner in uh, San Francisco, California. So let me get my deck started here because that will launch us into what it is that we're really here to talk about today. So I'll minimize myself. Practiced this earlier. And boom, there it does. It does work. So who are we talking to today? So I have a company, Green Ocean Global Investment Advisors. Today we're going to be talking about investment planning for the savvy expatriate. And yeah, so I'm a certified financial planner. So I thought it might be interesting to talk about what certified financial planners do in the United States. Certified financial planning is essentially sort of the gold standard for domestic financial planning. Back in the old days, if you wanted to do investing in the stock market, you had to rely on basically a bunch of salespeople that were pitching you investment products. And over the years, it became clear that that was probably not the best way to go about making investment decisions. So the CFP designation in the United States is a way of kind of thinning that group of people out to those of us that are interested enough in getting a breadth of knowledge about retirement planning concepts. So that includes estate planning, tax planning, and a whole range of other financial issues that touch all of our lives. Now, during the pandemic, while I was in Portugal, I had an opportunity to meet with a new organization that allowed me to kind of enhance my skill set. And so we are now what is known as global financial planners. It's this very small group as of now, because as you might imagine, the skill set becomes, well, it gets pretty complex. And especially when it pertains to countries, it's hard to go very far in this without choosing a country to focus on. So I thought I would give you an example of the kinds of questions that people like me have to answer on a regular basis. And so kind of you have level 1 questions and level 2 questions. So level 1, if you have a financial planner, that planner should help you to be able to solve for how you spend your retirement accounts down, right? So you save money for decades. And then at the end of your savings, you have different kind of tax advantaged piles of money. Well, as it turns out, it's advantageous to spend some money from some columns before others. So for example, if you have $1 million in retirement accounts and you have $1 million in non-retirement accounts, well, those retirement accounts are going to be taxed as soon as you start taking money out of them. So of course, you don't want to do that, right? You want to let that money in the traditional IRA, you want to let it continue to grow over the years so that at the end of your presumed kind of pre-withdrawal period, when you're 70, you'll have 2.5 million bucks. Pretty good. I mean, that's definitely a first world problem to have. And as we'll see, that's definitely the case. So what I've tried to do here is show you that if that's what you're doing, you are not paying very much in taxes as you head off into retirement. From 60 to 70, if you've retired at 60, that's what this person has done, you're not paying any taxes until you're 70. Okay. But as you know, maybe you do, hopefully you do, as you go through retirement, you're going to be forced to take money out of your IRAs, and your tax burden is going to go up over time. And I promise this is going to a global place in just 1 second. So if you stay in the United States, you're going to be grumpy when you're 80 because you are paying $100,000 a year in tax bills. It's a bunch of money. It doesn't kill you though. I mean, it's still, again, kind of a first world problem, but you can take early distributions. And so as it turns out, taking early distributions can take the form of, kind of tiptoeing up to this tax bracket line here and getting money out of your accounts before you retire. Okay. And remember, we're here just in the United States still, but even under the circumstances here, it is better to do this. It's better to take your money out of your accounts. So you kind of start taking distributions early. And look at what that does. So pay attention to the big blue line here. That's your money. That's your income tax burden. If you don't take money out of your IRAs early. But if you take money out early, your tax burden stays under the higher income thresholds, which is pretty cool. It saves you $3.8 million. That's very cool. But what's really germane here, what becomes relevant, is when we get to level 2, because, right, if you go to Portugal, things get different, don't they? They get different in a hurry because when we go to Portugal, of course, we're no longer, let's go to federal first. We're no longer looking at the same tax tables, right? So I'm going to be getting into NHR in a minute and why that's important and why it works well in conjunction with the Golden Visa. It really works well regardless. But if you're not under NHR, you don't get these tax tables. We spend a lot of time complaining about taxes in the US. But look at this. You have to make $500,000 before you get into the 37% marginal bracket. That's $500,000 a year. Okay. 80,000, and you're still mostly paying at 10 and 12%. Not here in Portugal. right? So in Portugal, the top earners are, are right here. This is the 2022 tax tables for Portugal versus the United States. So maybe you can see where I'm going with this is so normally financial planners are solving for this question of, how do I minimize my tax burden over time and avoid paying at the 35% rate. Okay. If you're going to Portugal, though, you're going to want to be really mindful of this because it's interesting. During those first 10 years, you're under NHR. And so you're essentially more worried about being in the United States than you are being in Portugal because you're not faced with the full brunt of Portuguese tax residency yet. Okay. So that's just kind of a primer. That's a primer for why being a financial planner changes for someone like me once you take it to the kind of the global format. How do I make sure that I'm building my investments to produce the right level of cash flow? Right. That's kind of 101 for financial planning. If I want to spend X dollars per month, am I doing my investing the right way? And it gets into the weeds real quick. We start talking about investments, but that's where it pays to plan. So this is kind of the sort of retirement plan that I build for clients all the time. Is we look at what percentage of your income is stable. How are you ensuring that you're not taking too much risk if you're about to retire and the stock market is looking dicey, which, by the way, of course, it is today. And then once you start really kind of peeling the onion and looking at what the projected income on your portfolio is, then that's what retirement planners do. They go, okay, well, based on your values here, here's what we're doing on a monthly basis with your accounts, etc. So, anyways, so that's and of course, lest we forget, there's forex to consider. So, of course, right now we have one of the most favorable exchange rates that we have seen for a really long time between the United States and Europe, and it's possible that this could go just a little bit lower. I think it's likely given things that are going on in the world right now. So, anyways, so that was sort of, I hope, I had hoped to kind of give you some baseline for what it is that I normally address when I'm addressing Americans and working alongside them to help them do financial planning. And now that I'm a global financial planner, I have moved way into the space that hopefully all of you are considering, which is what happens when I move to Portugal or to really anywhere in the EU. So the Golden Visa, in case you're not familiar with it, the folks at Nomad do an incredible job of doing write-ups on this. Of course, the Golden Visa is a citizenship by investment program, which of course gives you the ability to participate in full employment, fully access their healthcare resources, engage in the wonderful educational opportunities that exist here in Europe. And then once you become a full citizen, just like full citizens here in the United States, you can do so many things to participate in the Republic as well. But of course, one of my dreams, one of my Americans living in Europe dreams is that, of course, you can travel freely within Schengen Europe and live and work and retire elsewhere in the EU if you want to. So anyways, you probably know all of this. Portugal is just one of many countries that have programs from Canada to the United Kingdom. And yes, even good old US of A. We all have some form of citizenship by investment that you can participate in. The things to consider here, of course, are you don't have to do the Golden Visa. The Golden Visa is just one of many ways that you can make your way into specifically Portugal. Recently, of course, as of the end of October, the Portuguese government has introduced its new digital nomad certificate, which is just another kind of interesting twist on the D7 form of citizenship. Digital nomad is probably just going to be a little bit less rigorous with regards to how they pass people through. What they want to ensure is that you have enough money, that is current income. You have to have 4 times the minimum wage in Portugal, which I believe is about 750 euros slash dollars per month. So if you make $3,000 and you want to submit yourself to the uh, the eyeballs of the immigration authorities, then you can consider using the digital nomad certificate as well. So things to think about before you leave. First of all, a personal note, don't be this guy. This is a picture of the 40-foot container that I took with me when I moved from San Francisco, California. And I had a devil of a time with this. The interesting thing that my friends pointed out is, John, they have stores in Europe too. They do. There's a big IKEA right outside of town, so you don't need to bring all of your old stuff with you. Although, of course, there are so many other sentimental attachments that we form to things. So think about it very carefully before you decide to take a whole raft of junk with you around the world. But anyways, so the first concept that I'm going to talk about here is NHR, non-habitual residence. I did not fill this slide out. Okay, I didn't fill that slide out, but I don't really have to. I can explain this to you very simply. NHR is a tax status that you need to file for in the year following the year that you become a tax resident of Portugal. So if you are here for more than 186 days of the first year that you live here, that's your first year. And then you need to file for non-habitual residence tax status by, I think it's March 31st of the following year. Pretty important? Yeah, you betcha. NHR is super important because it is going to change your tax status on just about every type of income that you receive and gains that you're subject to during the time that you live here. So first thing is real estate. Now, as a financial advisor, I talk to people about this all the time. They wonder whether they should keep the real estate or whether they should get rid of it. And is there a financial reason for one or the other? Okay, I'm gonna make sure we do have questions coming in. What if you are not an American? Then you see, Gary asked this a while ago. I'm going to answer it though, because it's an important point. I have actually done some interesting studies for individuals that aren't Americans. They've asked, what if I'm not an American, or if I have a green card, should I get rid of the green card? The biggest difference that I am fully cognizant of is this: is the United States practices what is known as citizenship-based taxation, which just means that anytime that you leave the United States, the U.S. presumes that you are going to be returning home, and you must therefore continue to report all of your worldwide income back under the penalty of some pretty stiff fines. So the U.S. is not super nice about this. There's a lot of glare. That's better. Yeah, so if you're not American, the NHR is still open to you, and it's actually better. I helped a Canadian move here, and he had me do an expatriation study because he had a green card. And we did a study that conclusively demonstrated that he is far better off, given his particular set of circumstances, in letting his green card lapse or actually surrendering it. But everybody's situation is completely different. Let me just make that very clear. Everybody's statement is going to be situation is going to be completely different. But a lot of people are going to be better off if they're able to no longer be American, if they're not assuming that they're going to be going back. Because of course, if you are American, there are a lot of additional annual filings that you must do. So. NHR. So yeah, so on real estate, the question really is, do you want to consider managing the real estate? And I'm talking about, really management. I had a property for a few years that I had to continue managing, and you might get a call at 2 a.m. to call a plumber for somebody whose toilet is flooding. Things like this. During the middle of COVID, people decided that they maybe wanted to hit pause on paying rent, which was totally allowable and no judgment whatsoever. But it makes it hard if you have a mortgage to pay So, there's just various kinds of vulnerabilities that you have if you continue to own the property. But it also becomes a nice fallback, of course, if you maybe are a little undecided on whether you want to stay in Portugal or not. So, from a tax standpoint, though, all of the income that you derive from your US based residence is going to be exempt from Portuguese taxation. So, you don't have to worry about that under NHR. Okay. When it comes to investments, you are going to be exempt from your dividend income, and there is some sort of controversy on that point. The good folks at Nomad Gate point out on their website that you are not exempt from taxation on capital gains. But there is actual controversy around that. There have been some cases that have been fought and won that show that the double tax treaty that exists between the two countries does include what's called the savings clause at the end of the tax treaty, and that says that if there's any taxation on the asset in the United States, that it's not to be taxed in Portugal, and that means, yeah, if you're taxed at the 15% long-term capital gains rate in the United States, then Portugal does not have the 28% hold on those gains. But again, you circumstances vary from person to person, don't they? So you definitely want to kind of make sure that you're talking to the right experts and you're covered if you're trying to do some real aggressive tax work there. There is the question of mutual fund ownership. You can't buy new mutual funds once you're in the Eurozone, anywhere in the Eurozone. It's called the MIFID protocol, and I'm going to get into that in just a minute. But there are, of course, a number of solutions to this issue as well. Estate planning. So estate planning is a big deal. One of the first lawyers that I met with when I arrived in Portugal pointed out that there is not a stamp duty on inheritance. So you're not going to be paying an estate tax of any kind. But there is this conflict that U.S. wills are not out of the box, and trusts especially are not going to be valid. They're not going to be considered automatically valid in Portugal. But you can get around that fairly quickly by signing sort of a sub will, if you will, by writing out another will here that just says, I'm John, and I want to consider all of my estate planning that's been performed in the United States valid, and sign it and have it notarized by your local authorities, and that should cover you fairly well. Should you keep your job? Should you get rid of your job? Well, that's a matter of personal taste, isn't it? But the breakdown with this is if you're under NHR, you're not going to be taxed here in Portugal, because there's going to be more tax that you're faced with back in the United States. But when you're not under NHR, you're going to be taxed under those Portuguese tax tables that we went over earlier. So look out for that, because taxes are, of course, much higher. You are paying into the rather considerable public fund that gives us all the benefits that a lot of Americans grouse about every day. But if you are a digital nomad, you should be fairly happy with the NHR. And it's also possible that there can be some pre-planning that's done with regards to this. And what I'm thinking is some people have a company formation that's based outside of Portugal that can give you a little bit of more favorable treatment. It's not always the case, but it's something you can investigate with a professional. And that's okay. That was my next point here. Oops. Sorry, get myself out of the way here. Evaluate the business. I mean, if you have an LLC in the United States, there could be some pushback, or not pushback. It's just that the Portuguese authorities don't view the LLC as a pass-through in the same way that America does. And so, since you're not a pass-through, you're not going to enjoy the same automatic tax treatment that you enjoy in the U.S. That things are automatically sort of attributing to you as an individual. So all of the income that you distribute from the LLC is going to have to be designated as such. But all other forms of corporations are going to be respected. So considerations, I think the big takeaway here is people often get more nervous about this than I think they need to. The one thing you got to be sure that you do is just do a little bit of pre-planning if you have an LLC. Um, and you also got to make sure that you're going to do the NHR. If you don't file by the end of March following the year that you become a tax resident, you are going to be out of luck, and, and you're going to feel really silly because it is an incredible benefit. Let's see. Where do you perform the work? Social Security. This is an interesting question that I don't get very frequently, but there is something that's called an equalization agreement that exists within the dual tax treaties. And what this ensures is that if you're paying Social Security here, the credits that you're paying into the system here, they are actually going to apply to your Social Security credits for your U.S. Situation. All right, the ABCs of Project Portugal. So here I'm trying to kind of talk about some of the things that I've alluded to earlier. The MIFID issue is very interesting, especially to me as an investments person. EU Parliament basically says, well, okay, United States, you have a bunch of mutual funds that are offered in the industry. Those mutual funds are not okay to us. You can't have any European Union citizen going out and buying mutual fund products carte blanche. It doesn't work for us. Okay. And so that's an interesting situation because a lot of us really get accustomed to using mutual funds, especially in our IRA and our 401k. And so let's see. So I did put together a little bit of information on ways that you can try and become conforming with regards to this. You have mutual funds, you have ETFs, you have stocks. What's really interesting is that in the last 5 years, you've got what's called custom indexing. And this is something that I've done a fair amount of work in recently is all that a mutual fund really is, if you think about it, is it's a basket of individual stocks, right? And so if you're buying 50 stocks in a mutual fund and then you're paying somebody for managing that 50 stocks for you, it used to be very beneficial because it used to cost a lot of money to trade individual stocks. So if you wanted to buy 50 stocks and then sell 50 stocks and go and rebalance your portfolio, it could cost you, right? But that's not the thing anymore. So you can buy and sell individual stocks for free now. And so, while the MIFID issue is, it's not inconsiderable, if you're coming to Portugal, it's not going to be super hard to work around. So not just myself, but there's a number of places where you can get access to basic portfolios of stocks that match the indexes that you're trying to be involved with, because you don't want to take too much risk of owning, all Facebook, of course. We've seen how that works out sometimes. You want to be diversified. And so you can do that through exploring some of these different kinds of alternative programs. So that's all I'll say on that. I obviously love talking about the topic, but it's not what we're here to focus on today. So PFIC. Now, PFIC is a dirty word, and it really should be. What this stands for is a specific tax classification that passive income has. What's really important to this is a lot of these golden visa programs, they qualify as a PFIC because they are investing in oftentimes property, and that property has a nice stream of passive income that's attached to it. And that income, unfortunately, in the eyes of the United States government, in the eyes of the IRS, is, well, it used to be a kind of an opportunity for a tax dodge. So what PFIC essentially does is it kicks all of that income that's generated by the investment up to the highest possible tax rate. So the first dollar that comes off of that that hotel investment that's producing passive income is going to be a PFIC income. But you can get around it if you ensure that your investment fund is providing you with a qualified electing fund form. So this didn't used to be something that was really well known here in Portugal, but the local investment community, of course, is they're not dumb, and so they're really kind of getting up to speed with regards to this. But you definitely want to make sure that you ask and not assume that you're going to be able to get a qualified electing fund form. What this will ensure is that essentially you're not going to be hit with that tax rate that we talked about. You're going to be able to capitalize everything as a long-term capital gain in the way that you would want to, while while you're working through your residency issues over time. So that's the qualified electing fund. NHR. Well, so I already talked about this. Just make sure that you're aware of how this all works, right? Because NHR is going to last for 10 years. And then once it's, and once it's done, it's done, right? And so you just want to consider what life after NHR is going to look like. And literally what I'm thinking of is those retirement accounts, okay? Standard IRAs or Roth IRAs, especially. God knows I love the Roth IRA for domestic planning because who knows what the tax rate will be in the future. I think it's probably going up. But if you have Roth IRAs, those are going to be considered as a foreign pension when you live here. And as such, if you take distributions from a Roth IRA, you're going to be taxed again. And that's the most painful thing of all, of course, because you've already been taxed on doing conversions from an IRA to a Roth IRA. So things like that, just be sure that you're thinking of your cash flow after NHR is done, because I know 10 years can seem like a long time, but it's not. It of course flies by in a real hurry. And then you're looking at these differences in rates. I mean, look at the NHR rate. It's 20% across the board, right? But once you're on the general, the general menu here, you're looking at really high tax rates for what we as Americans would consider to not be extremely high rates of income. And the same goes when it comes to dividends, capital gains, rental income, etc. The general rate is totally different than the NHR rate is, right? So this is where it gets interesting to think about company formations, for example. I was just talking with a tax attorney today and making the point that if you're in the United States now, it could be possible to maybe put all of your real estate into an LLC. And if you put all of your real estate into an LLC, you can kind of control the rate of income after that 10-year period has elapsed. In other words, an LLC is taxed a little bit differently than straight rental income. And he made the point of, well, yeah, but then the U.S. is going to be taxing you on your total rental income anyways. So it's not like you're getting into 0 versus 28. And so that's a fair point. So suffice it to say, there's just some things to continue to think about and to plan. So Gretzky asks, to clarify, post NHR, well, no. On Roth distributions, no, it's going to be considered as as income on. So where is that? Well, it's further back, but you're basically getting income in Portugal. That those Roth distributions are going to be counted as income. So whatever amount that you're distributing are going to be coming in at this general rate. Yeah, this is the right page. So if you're taking $10,000 in distributions, which under current conversion rates, that's 10,000 euros. you're going to be paying at the 23% rate on your Roth distributions. And that's painful. I mean, you already paid or didn't get a tax credit when you made a Roth contribution in the beginning. So hopefully that clarifies for you, Gretzky. Okay. Hopefully I'm on time. I haven't been watching the clock here, but my wife says I'm a fast talker. So, and I don't mean that in the negative sense. I don't want to run over time. Were you here? So, working with professionals, right? So, I've already alluded to the fact that I know a lot of professionals here in Portugal. Everybody has professionals. I always like to point out to the people that, who doesn't have a professional or who doesn't have advisors, right? I mean, everybody that's somebody needs to bounce ideas off of people. I certainly do. And I play nicely in the sandbox with just about everyone else that I meet, especially here in the local Portuguese community. Not all advisors that we've seen, not all leaders behave the same way when we think of how they work with their advisors. So what do we want to look for, right? I think it's obvious because I led off talking about this that there are a number of credentials that you can lean on. Certified financial planners, analysts, CPAs. These are important things because these credentials ensure what? They ensure that these individuals can be held accountable for the advice that they've given. So, certified financial planner needs to serve as a fiduciary with regards to the education they provide. So, if they're helping you with portfolio management or giving you advice, they have to be held to that fiduciary standard. In other words, if they do something that is against your best interest, they can be taken to task on that. And I mean, literally. Yeah, so you have credentials that you can lean on. Technical competence. The technical competence can be a tricky one because I don't know. I had my car fixed by a Portuguese mechanic a few weeks ago, and I have to be careful with this, how I joke about this. But man, oh man, if you think that car mechanics are difficult to work with under the best of circumstances, try working with one in a foreign language. I can't know whether this guy was competent, but it took him a month and a half to fix my car, and it cost a lot of money. So if you're good at interviewing, use those interviewing skills because there are some basic things that can help you to reveal whether the person's technically competent or not. Should be able to explain this to a 5-year-old. In other words, with the Portuguese mechanic, I said, so you're telling me that I need to replace this part. Why? Why are we replacing a part for 800 euros? And what I got down to is there wasn't a reason. So I had them clean it out, and instead of cleaning out my wallet for 2,000 euros, I had to pay 1,200 euros, and I got somebody to clean some parts out. And suffice to say, I won't be going back to the same mechanic. So just put good questions to those professionals that you meet. Reputation, I think, is always a valuable thing. I have met a lot of good tax specialists and attorneys through the Facebook group and through Nomad Gate. So Nomad Gate was my first inroad to learning about so many of the great private equity professionals that are practicing here in Portugal. And I have actually done a lot of research utilizing the information that was provided by these individuals or by Nomad Gate. So I've gone into some of the groups where they talk about the golden visas, and I'm happy to share this with anybody that's on the call today. I have used their spreadsheets and the due diligence that's been done by the community and just taken it up a few notches myself. And I've worked in private equity, so I was able to ascertain that there were some that really looked excellent, and there were some maybe that were overstating some things. But yeah, I mean, background checking using the reputational authority that's been gained in groups like Nomad Gate, and it can be incredibly valuable, in my opinion. Track record. Here I'm thinking, yeah, okay, yeah. So the broker check. right? So for financial professionals, I know that for me, for example, you can go ahead and look me up on Broker Check Online, which is the Security and Exchange Commission's kind of permanent record on what financial advisors have gotten up to in their career, or at least where they've worked, just to make sure everything checks out. And I'm aware that almost every financial discipline, or every professional discipline rather, that I have come across has a similar kind of online track record database. Um, in case you have any troubles finding these things, I'm happy to help you find these as well. But it's a wonderful thing to live in the internet age. Most people have, they have a paper trail that you can easily find online. And then last but not least, over the years, I've learned this. If you have good chemistry and a shared language, that can be an important thing. So, do you feel comfortable asking hard questions? I think if the answer is no, then you want to either figure out how to bridge the gap or don't go back to that professional. And especially when you're talking about a foreign language, don't just think, maybe I didn't understand that because the language barrier. No, I mean, especially in the professional disciplines here, of course, there are some Portuguese that speak incredibly good English. In fact, compared to a lot of foreign countries that I've been to, the Portuguese are heads and shoulders above so many countries, and how well they speak everyday English. And yeah, I mean, I again wanted to just kind of come back to this slide because it is not just one of these items, but it's all of them. Immigration lawyers, CPAs, financial advisors, etc. If you can get if you can get everybody on the same page and helping pull in the same direction for you, then that's of course going to be the ideal scenario, right? Because I talk to, I've mentioned this already. I talk to all these people all the time, and as much as I try to kind of field marshal things for my clients, sometimes you got to do the work yourself. So look at that, 40 minutes. 40 minutes was the time that they told me that I needed to take. So I'm real happy that I was able to do that. And now I'm going to take a couple of questions from folks that put questions in before we met here. The first was, can you please share information and resources on declaring one's investment in these things? Totally happy to do that, Carolina. In fact, yeah, I have all the emails of anybody that registered today. So not only will there be a recording, but I will send around an email to say thanks for your time, as well as to say if you want to follow up with me, I'm happy to share some of my resources with you. The new cultural production golden visa scheme and how safe and reliable it could be. I am not 100% on this, nor am I. Okay, so the other one I am. So the second part of this question, Eddie, is investment in commercial hotels and resort golden visas with guaranteed buybacks and guaranteed ROIs. If you look very carefully at these guarantees, the guarantees are, they do always have an out, okay? As I've mentioned, I've worked in private equity before, and what this is, oh gosh, we got some other, yes. Okay, sorry. I will focus on this. So the out with a lot of these golden visa programs is yes, you can get your money back if we can get the liquidity for you. Okay. I was literally sitting with a golden visa fund in their office on Tuesday, and we were chatting, and one partner came into the room and said, not Eddie, but we'll say Eddie, this person wants to get their money back out because they're having some trouble with the immigration process. They were really concerned. I should say this, there was no kind of chuckling in the back office. They thought, yeah, maybe we can get that money back to the person, but we have to find somebody else to buy it from person A, right? So person A comes back and says they want to get their money back. That can happen. but it's not automatic because the Golden Visa fund is investing the pool in an asset. Okay. And so if they have already pledged or invested the money to the asset, then, how do they get the money for you? They literally have to have someone else that's coming in the door and willing to buy the fund from the first person in order to get your money back for you. So that actually almost always exists next to the little asterisk next to guaranteed. They have to have the liquidity. Otherwise, they are going to have a little out. They're going to say, "Well, we'll wait. Let's wait and see if we can get some money off the investment, or we can get another investor to come in." So it's not always. It's not as if these guarantees are so safe and reliable. Investment in the interior of Portugal, a minimum of 280. I feel like I missed something there. Oh, guaranteed return on investment. Again, guarantees usually bear an asterisk next to them. And the most common form of asterisk is that we will make it back to you. We will always get you kind of your guaranteed amount before we pay ourselves. So if they guarantee you 4%, that guarantee is legitimately a guarantee that they'll give you your 4%, assuming that they can make money on the deal at all. So, if there's a depression and it crashes the hotel industry, there's still going to be a chance that your investment doesn't come back to you. I mean, maybe not right away. But if there's a mild recession and they produce 3% the first year and then they get 5% the next year, there's usually a catch-up provision wherein they will get you your 3% the first year, and then the second year they'll give you the 5, and then if they get 8 the next year, they'll go and give you your 4, and they'll pay themselves out of the excess. So that is how private equity funds work. They give you the money that they can give you, and they're always a little bit. I mean, we're not talking about the stock market that has billions of dollars invested at any given moment, so it's all liquid. Like these are investments where you're basically a partner in an enterprise, and so the partnership could work fabulously, or there could be some hiccups along the way. Investment in the interior of Portugal, minimum of 280. I'm not sure what that means. Downturn. Oh, okay. I think the question is if you've met the minimum and there's a downturn in the future, does that maybe compromise your immigration profile? And the answer is no. Like, you just need to meet the minimum initially, and once you've been approved. The new cultural production visa scheme and how safe and reliable it could be. I don't know on that one. I think you've already picked up on the fact that I'm more kind of investment focused, and I've done a ton of work on understanding the investment focused golden visa options. I'm not sure about the cultural production ones. Knowing the Portuguese, you might actually get better treatment under the cultural production golden visa scheme because they really do want you to be participating in the growth of the republic. I've been surprised to find that some of the golden visa participants have been treated to a little bit of a less favorable experience relative to like a D7 investor, and I asked why, and it just seems like the Portuguese are a little bit lukewarm on the concept of folks bringing money in and getting their visa guarantee. I don't know. This is hearsay and speculation, so I won't engage in it anymore. Let's see. Opinion on if there is still time to start the process and will they be grandfathered? Yeah, I know that there has been some talk recently about about stopping the program, but this kind of talk is sort of ever present. I think like every other year, it seems like since the golden visa has been introduced, there's a lot of questions either from someone else within the EU or from the government of Portugal about whether they're going to stop it. Of course, none of us knows, but all the indications have been that individuals will not be terminated if the program's terminated. It's like all insurance programs. Once the insurance product is held to be defective, all the people that have already paid in, they get paid out. But new people are not going to be allowed in. So my expectation, Robert, would be that is how this goes down if indeed they terminate the golden visa here in Portugal. So those were all the questions that folks submitted before we got together today. It's always fun to have a co-host because they always ask extra questions. So I'm going to keep the room Actually, Gretzky had a few more questions here. I'm going to keep the room open for another 10 minutes, regardless of whether we get a avalanche of more questions. We feel we need. Yeah. 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 No, you do not need to have the New England Patriots, Gretzky, to make these decisions. I think a financial advisor is always kind of nice because I am one, but non-selfishly, in all honesty, I have had CPAs as clients. I have had attorneys as clients. One of the things that financial advisors do really well, because the CFP demands it, is that there are modules for this. With a CFP certificate, I have actual education modules in each of these areas, which makes me a great generalist. So yeah, so having a CFP, having a immigration lawyer, and a tax advisor, you just named them. Yeah, I mean, having the tax advisor should be a tax lawyer, by the way. Okay, because I work with both CPAs and tax attorneys, and I found that the tax attorneys, although they're a little more expensive, the difference between CPAs and tax attorneys is tax attorneys are a lot more interested in the nuance of the tax law and getting into the weeds with you. Whereas, and I'm not casting aspersions, please. I have met so many smart CPAs, but they tend to be a bit more involved with tax preparation and making sure that the preparation is done right. And that's not as much planning as some of the attorneys that I've worked with. Anonymous, how would income or capital be taxed under the NHR from an offshore trust? Oh, you said Cayman Islands. If this was a radio show, I would have like a buzzer to hit when you mentioned the Cayman Islands or the Island of Man. So this is actually, but in all seriousness, Malta, there's the Maltese connection. So if you have an interest in trying to kind of, take a aggressive approach to global taxation, I have certainly met some tax attorneys who have advised on setting up accounts in places like Malta, where you can receive your dividend income and be taxed 0% under the NHR for that dividend income that you receive from that location. I want to disclaim again that was not me that was giving the advice, but this is the advice that I have seen issued on many occasions. And my presumption would be that it would apply to places like the Isle of Man, like the Cayman Islands, like the Bermuda Triangle. How does the new digital nomad visa require you to be a tax resident? Does it require you? It does. Yeah, the digital nomad visa will require that you get a NIF, that you become a tax resident. The fact is, it's so new that it hasn't really been tested yet. In other words, I haven't met somebody that's gone through the whole process. And so the digital nomad visa is intended to make it a little bit of a faster process for individuals that are making over that minimum threshold of income, which is about, I think it's 30,000. Yeah, it's 4 times minimum wage. So that's what, 750. That's 36,000 actually. So that is what you're looking at with the digital nomad visa, and then it's like it comes in 2 different layers. Like there's one that's a 1-year version, and then there's a more sort of evergreen version that you can apply for. But as you can tell, I haven't drilled down too deep into that. Does NHR impact foreign sourced income, Portugal sourced income, or both? Both, Jeff. Important question, actually. So NHR is 20% cap for domestic income, meaning Portuguese income once you're here. So your Portuguese income is going to be capped out at 20. It's great. But your foreign sourced income is generally going to be taxed at around the 10% rate. Super important for folks who are coming over and just relying on Social Security, right? So as a financial advisor, I've worked with all kinds of people. One of them was a restaurateur. He had a Michelin star restaurant, but I was shocked. I shouldn't be so shocked that he didn't have any money, because running restaurants is a hard business. And he said, I'd like to move to Portugal because I only have $100,000 saved and I'm 65. And for him, it was important that his Social Security was not going to be taxed at higher rates than he was expecting. So, so yeah, I think that's me. I've had a really good time. Well, sort of good time. It's always strange when you're talking to to an empty room. Um, but we absolutely love living in Portugal. I think, all of you for considering this are, you have a superpower because most people just follow the pack. One of the first things that I noticed when I got here is there are not any other financial advisors here for the most part. Actually, I saw a few that registered for this. So, I mean, absolutely no aspersions. There's not that many folks that are willing to come over here because what? You got to move away from your friends and family. You've got to maybe learn Portuguese, which em porcaria é muito difícil para mim e para toda a minha família. And you got to answer all these really hard questions. So, just a big round of applause for everybody else. And I'll answer one more question before I get out of here. And that is, Eddie, I have my NIF through April. I also have a bank account. What should I do after 1 year physical representation of the NIF online expires? You should just reapply. Generally, the finances website is going to be super effective at helping you to keep your NIF alive. I was just on it today. Thank you, Gretzky, and thank you for all the questions, by the way. Sorry, Eddie, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I love engagement, and it's nice to hear from you. But yeah, Eddie, yeah, go to the finances website and just keep it alive. One last thing I will say, and this is again not to take away from anybody that's providing great service to individuals moving here, but you can do a lot of these things on your own if you have the temerity to just do some Portuguese. I know it's not easy, but the finances website is generally easier to use than the IRS when it comes to kind of self-service. And I find that sort of a strange fact, given that you have to have a representative to do a lot of things here. So it was really strange to me that the NIF was easy to get and to maintain and to do so much online. It is worth talking to a professional because of that, because all the things that you bring, all the preconceptions that you bring with you are helpful as a jumping off point, because you're going to have to relearn. Well, I mean, if you learn Portuguese, you're going to have to flip your words around a lot. But in a real way, a lot of other things about how you manage your financial life are going to have to change in subtle ways, but important ways as well. So anyways, anonymous attendee, yes, I can definitely connect you with a good lawyer. Anybody that wants to connect with me afterwards, please, I'm going to send a quick email to everybody. Write me back. People like me, of course, only live at the pleasure of you. So I've been trying to do my best to connect with all of the local resources, and so I'm happy to connect anybody with anybody that they might need help from as well. And of course, Nomad Gate is a fantastic resource as well. I thank them so much for helping give me this platform today. Other than that, I'm going to wish you guys well, and have a great rest of your day.